Hi, I'm Sharon Davis with the Home Baking Association, and I'm delighted to share my test baking knowledge and skills with you today. I'm a family and consumer sciences teacher and a test kitchen professional, as well as a baking workshop provider for many teachers across the country. So I'm delighted to be with you today, and let's talk about why measurement matters so much, whether you're at home or trying to build a career in home or baking products. When you talk about the measurements you make in baking, they're more than just the ingredients. We need the temperatures to be accurate, whether they're ingredient temperatures, internal temperatures, storage temperatures, or oven temperatures. We need volume and scale to be accurate, and we need the liquid and dry ingredients to be measured accurately, and they aren't measured necessarily the same unless they are scaled. Portions and cost control all rely on accurate measurement. And then the food labeling and nutrition facts are a point of law, in fact, when you're selling products. So for repeatable quality baking outcomes, measurement matters a whole bunch. When you look at our membership, we represent all types of professionals in baking. So if you're looking into careers in baking and milling and the ingredients that go into them, you can't go wrong at our membership section of our website. So take a stop, take a look. You can start farm to and go to oven with all of the different members and the work they do in test baking or baking product promotion. Back to measurement, let's talk about what's essential. If you start with temperatures, three categories here: temperatures, ingredient quantities, and portions. Measurement matters and it needs to be repeatable. That's what test baking is all about. So we want our temperatures to be accurate up on our ingredients. Some ingredients need to be at room temperature, like eggs and flour when they go in. Some need to be cold, like the fats we use are often have to be at cold temperatures to get good results. And yeast, well, we all know it'll die if it gets too hot. So under 135 is critical, or you'll have bricks. Ovens need to be heated to temp, or if they're not accurate, you might want to be sure you're checking it out with an oven thermometer. Sometimes some of the worst results I got were just simply because the oven was slow, or it was too hot, and airflow was poor, or maybe the racks are in the wrong placement. So measuring the oven temperature is important when you first start out with an oven that you're not acquainted with. Internal or finished product temperatures are important both for baking food safety, but also quality. If something's underbaked, it won't store properly. It might be unsafe to eat. On the other hand, if the internal product is actually raw, it looks dumb and it's raw, then you cannot sell it or offer it at all to someone safely. So taking those internal temperatures are important. Storage, if a product's ready to wrap, it needs to be cool enough at the interior temperature. And that is usually somewhere around 100 degrees or less when you wrap the product. Otherwise, you'll get steaming, you might get excess moisture in the wrapping. Also, you can store product at too cold a temperature, like yeast breads. You have these beautiful Kaiser buns, and all of a sudden you put them in the refrigerated temperatures of your lab classroom, and you may have bricks the next day. They'll be staled. So in storing your products, especially yeast breads, and then of course cheesecakes have to be refrigerated, you've got both continuums, but be sure the storage temperatures are right. Ingredient quantities have to be accurate. Otherwise, you get either too much liquid, too much dry ingredient. Well, we know the result. You get too liquid of a product and it won't set up because there's too much moisture. Or in the case of too dry, it crumbles, or you can't get an accurate measurement on the portion sizing either when you vary the liquid and dry ingredients too much. And pieces like nuts or fruit pieces, they have to be scaled to be really accurately measured. Otherwise, they're odd shapes and they don't measure well in a volume measuring cup. Portioning means that you are all going to get the same size muffin, cookie, brownie, roll, whatever you're looking for. And it also means that you'll be able to sell them. You'll be able to unit cost your dough or formula and know how much each time you're going to have at the end of the production cycle. So food labels and nutrition facts rely on it as well. Critically thinking, you might look at a recipe or a formula that you use. In our lab manual, we offer both measurement and volume techniques for each formula that we do or each baking science activity we do. And meanwhile, when you're thinking about critical measurements, this is a good action for your students to do. You should give them a formula or a recipe and say, what are all the different measurements you're going to take when you produce this recipe or this formula? And what's critical about those temperatures, those measurements, or other pieces of the measuring puzzle that I've just described. We can start with measuring temperatures. I highlighted this, but I want to be sure you know about this resource. It gives you your critical internal temperatures for all varieties of baked goods. And with that, we have a landing page for baking food safety that will supplement your serve safe education, or just in general, learning more at home to produce safe products. Of course, batter should not be consumed raw. Dough should not be consumed raw. And on the packaging, you'll see flour say must be cooked to consume. That is all the point. Flour is a raw commodity and it is not safe to eat raw. That means licking the spoons and the beaters and all that good stuff is kind of has to go out the window now. It's not a reward if you get sick. So moving through that, this chart's important to you. And then we have videos also. The quality baking temperatures video we offer is pretty darn great. It looks like this on our website. If we had time, we'd listen to it, but we'll upload this and you can listen to it in the deck, or you can go to our website and listen to Chef Martin Earl talk about the importance of taking temperatures at different points during the baking process. One way to prove to yourself that it matters is to get into this activity that we've designed for you called Scoop, Spoon, and Scale. It's on our website, free for you to look at. It starts with flour because that's usually the largest volume or weight in most baking recipes, with the exception of sugar in a high ratio cake or cookies in fact. So with this said, when you measure flour with a scooping method where you take the cup and you scoop into the bag and just shake it off, that is compared in this activity with accurately measuring by volume flour. And your goal is to see what different method has an impact on how your end result weight is. Scaling is, as we know, the accurate way to measure. And part of the reason is because there's such a variance in tools. Whether it's liquid measuring cups or dry measuring cups, all are not created equal. And this is one activity that, again, you can do too to help prove that to yourself or to your students if you're teaching and they're just not convinced that it matters that much. Have each one of them bring a liquid cup from home if they have it, or if not, have them grab a mug out of the cabinet and put 3/4 of a cup of liquid in there, or 8 ounces, and then compare where it all falls on the different measuring cups or in the mug. Some people literally use mugs. Some people literally use dry measuring cups for liquids. And all of these are not great practices. You really do need to have the accurate standardized cup. So we know the tools vary, the methods really do too. This is one similar to Scoop, Spoon, Scale, where you just take a look at whether or not you leveled off or did you just give it a shake, and then measure the difference in the quantity so that the student or you can determine how accurate are you actually measuring if you're using volume measurement. That test kitchen method is important, and we'll demonstrate it here in a minute, but just walking our way through it, you take the flour or the cocoa or any other dry ingredient, you lightly fluff it, and you spoon it directly into the dry measuring cup and heap it up. You use a dry measuring cup. You don't use a liquid measuring cup for dry ingredients. And I have definitely seen many people do that, where they just scoop it into that liquid cup and kind of shake it off and take a look. That won't do. So use the right tool for that job, and the level is important as well. Brown sugar is the exception, where you pack it in. We love brown sugar, so that's a good deal. But pack it into that dry measure cup, and it should come out looking like a sandcastle would, where it just holds its shape. But again, your sandcastle of brown sugar will be different weight than mine. And it's important, again, to realize that weighing that brown sugar would still be a superior way to get an accurate measurement for reliable outcomes. The liquid cup needs to be flat on the surface. You need to look at the amount in it level. And of course, be sure the liquid cup is accurate. Scrape or pour contents into the mixing bowl. This is the step-by-step you would do. By weight, you're going to use, if you look here, and we'll use this scale here in a minute too, you're going to tare the bowl weight. You're going to add an ingredient, push the tare button again, see how much it weighs, make sure you have the right weight in there, and then you'll tare it again and put the next ingredient in. And so the tearing or the zeroing out allows you not to use any of these tools. These volume cups aren't necessary anymore. Therefore, that's good news. You'll see why in a minute. Teach accurate liquid measurement, like I mentioned, use that eye level surface to do this type of measuring. Very, very important. And then with teaspoons and tablespoons, you can use the flat edge method where you dip in and level off. But typically, like with cornstarch, that works well. But some containers like baking powder or baking soda will offer you a level edge, and you can just kind of drag the teaspoon or the tablespoon over that. Any ingredient, spices, leavening that's a tablespoon or less can be measured this way versus scaling. But when you get into above 1 tablespoon, it's really best, again, you're going to start using a scale when you get into higher volumes of leavening agents and spices. A little bit too much is a big mistake in those ingredients. Accurate dry measuring by cupfuls. Again, I mentioned it, but you'll heap the flour after it's been fluffed into the cup, level it off, scoop or spoon lightly again, to be sure that you are using that same method every time when you're measuring. We offer video content, as do some of our members on this, and I'll show you in a minute. Digital scale use is really great because, again, you've got that tare. You don't have to worry with weights and weights on the balance. That's still one way bakers do measure their ingredients, but the digital scale is helpful. And again, that bowl on there can be weighed too. And when you're first starting, it doesn't hurt to weigh the bowl and write down the weight of the bowl, because you might forget to tare or zero out. And then it might be helpful to know the weight of the bowl. And when you get done, the weight of the batter or the dough is what's left when you subtract the weight of the bowl from it. So knowing your weight of your bowl is a great thing. I kind of write them sometimes I write them on the bottom of the bowl. And then I have that ready to go anytime I need it. Your students or you can become a test kitchen too. If you get accurate with your measurement and you learn to use scales, you can alter ingredients. So one set of recipes we worked on in the last few years is smart snack recipes that could be sold during school hours. They're controlled for fat, they're whole grain, they're not too sweet. All of that's what we were assigned and asked to do by the child nutrition department. And this was one recipe we changed. It's an oatmeal jam bar. It's delicious. The other reason you might want to quantify a recipe, take it out of volume measure and put it into weights, is because this makes only an 8x8 pan. And if you're going to sell a product, you're going to make more than one loaf, more than one 8x8 pan. And so you need weights then. It's just not practical to measure cupfuls and even think you will be accurate by the time you measure 20 cups of flour or 5 cups of oatmeal and 1 pound of, or 2 cups, 4 cups, a quart of jam. All of that doesn't work. You need to use a scale. And this shows you what HBA does for that bridge. What we do is we will start with 12 servings and we'll work with the cup measures. And when we're sure we have a good end result, we will weigh the weight of that. And then to reach the 48 or 50 or 100 servings, we can quadruple it by weight. You can do measure up to 50 servings, but anything beyond that, I would be working with weight to increase that particular recipe. And then if you go into large scale production, you'll be using baker's percent. And we'll briefly touch on that too. Weighing, this is the good news slide I wanted to say. You will have less cleanup. You will love this. No more goopy containers, measurement tools, and that is worth a lot right there. It saves time, it saves effort on each end of things. The measurements then when you're done making the dough or batter are important for you to have all the same size product. And in this case, you've all had your students end up with a few little bitty muffins in one part of the tin, and then they've had those that were boiling over, making muffin tops, mushroom top muffins on the other end of the tin. And in the end, you could only really sell half of them. And the little ones were too dry or burnt, and the big ones, well, were they really done at the middle? How could you tell? Because the other ones had to come out of the oven. The whole thing has been part of what we all have experienced. That's why a scoop, if you cannot scale, the right size scoop will help you to measure out the right amount of batter. A recipe might say it will make 12 muffins. And if you know that there is a quart of batter, then you can kind of tell if you need a fourth of a cup measure. You pour your water in here and you'll be able to see whether or not that's a fourth of a cup of batter when you scoop it. That can work, but being able to scale it is even better. If you know your batter weight, you can divide it by 12, and then you know what each one of the muffins needs to weigh by batter weight. So that's a great way to go. Again, you'll weigh your bowl. You'll subtract the weight of the bowl to establish the weight of the batter when you're done with the mixing process. And then you'll divide by the number of products you want and scoop or divide the dough to achieve it. So a consistent size means that you can then do nutrition facts, you can cost it accurately, and all your customers are happy. If your formula works the same way every time you make this product, you aren't going to worry, will it turn out this time? All because you went maybe from going from volume measure to grams or ounces in your product preparation. And I know that we have achieved that with our lab manual, and with some of our recipes. We still offer many home recipes without their weights. And what we would assign you to do is, if you see one that really appeals to you, you might try to convert that. And I'll show you in a second how to do that. Meanwhile, if you want to learn more about production baking and baker's percentages, you can find that in our glossary. You can find that with a video exemplifying it at King Arthur Baking as well. And what it means is the flour becomes the constant weight, and every other ingredient is 100, the flour weight is 100%, and every other ingredient in that formula will be a percentage weight of the flour weight. And that way, when you increase it to 100 pounds of dough, you are totally accurate all the way along. Measuring also means that you can add value. And this is extremely important to us as well. If you divide the dough equally, you can make those little soup bowls or those Kaiser roll buns and have everything turn out the same. You can take just the same dough and make many different shapes. But again, scaling the dough so that you know how much dough to use is critical to that. I'd like to take a minute now and demonstrate how you would take a favorite recipe of yours, and it's already in volume, but how would you do this in weights as well? So I'm going to switch so that you have my screen looking at my demo table here. And we're going to take Max's banana bread. That was my best friend in high school, and it was her mother's recipe. And we're going to go ahead and convert this into accurately volume measured and show the weights that these ingredients would all be. So we don't need the 4/3 half cup. We only need the 1 cup. We know this is mise en place, so we know we're going to need a teaspoon. We won't need that cup measure. We won't need the scoop. And here's all of our ingredients ready to go. First of all, we're going to turn on our scale. We're going to zero out our bowl or tare the bowl weight. So all of this weighs 0 right now. The first ingredient is 1 stick of butter or 1/2 cup. And if we weighed it, we would know it's 4 ounces or 110 grams. You can toggle back and forth to see that. But that is what butter should weigh. Then we're going to zero that out again. And now we're going to add our cup of sugar. And for that, we will want to either scoop or spoon lightly the sugar into the cup, and we'll level that off. Now what we want to know though is how much does a level cup of sugar, you can see me level this off, I hope, in the camera. How much does it weigh? It says it weighs 6.8 ounces or 194 grams. Now you can note that. That doesn't mean that's exactly right, but it's your first run at this recipe. So you'll write down what that weighed, and then you'll go from there with the other ingredients that you need. You know you need 2 large eggs. Of course, creaming is something you might be doing already, but we're going to zero this out because we want to find out what 2 large eggs weighs. 104 grams, should be about almost 4 ounces for 2 large eggs. And then we're going to zero that out again. We're going to add our teaspoon of vanilla. You're going to note I really accurately measure that. This is real vanilla, and it's really critical to make this taste super. The reason I didn't use my teaspoon is because I need to use it dry when I do my baking soda measurement. And this has its own level. You can see me just drag that, dip in there good, get it really full and drag it over the level. And I'm going to go ahead and add that in. Because we're going to beat this well, I'm not worried too much about that soda getting mixed well. Because my butter's unsalted, I'm going to go ahead and use 1/4 teaspoon additional salt. Again, you won't need to scale that because it's a teaspoon or less. Now we're getting ready for some of the other critical ingredients, the bananas, the flour, and the nuts. And where the flour is concerned, let's do that next. And again, specifically when you measure flour, hopefully you can see this. You're fluffing the flour into the cup. I'm using a white whole wheat flour. It makes this bread extra, a little bit darker, but extra flavorful. Since I'm on zero, we'll see how good I am at measuring. A cup of flour should weigh right at 4 ounces. And my goodness, I'm good today. It's 4 ounces. But we need 2 cups, so let's add that in. Now let's say I was into packing that in my cup. And again, we're going to want to end up at 8 ounces, and we're just a little shy of that. I'm going to go ahead and put a tad bit more in. I've got 8 ounces of flour. Now we're going to tear it out, because one of my pet peeves with banana bread is a lot of times you don't know how much banana to put in because the bananas are all different sizes. So it said I should use 3 large bananas. I have measured that extra ripe banana, and I can see that it's just over a cupful, and I'm going to go ahead and add that in, and I'm going to know that it weighed 9.6 ounces. I'm going to note that so that next time I do this, I know how much banana to use if it turns out well. And here I have a cup full of nuts. I don't chop them because I like them big in the banana bread, and they break up as they mix. But this is 3.3 ounces. So you see, you know now how much of each ingredient you have, and you can begin the process of standardizing that recipe to what you want it to be. I'm sure you have questions as you go along, but when it comes to the world of test kitchen baking, it's perfect for the Family and Consumer Sciences classroom for after-school programs to begin that process of learning volume measurement and accurate scaling. And when we divide the batters and doughs, we want to know how to portion them properly so that we end up with even pieces of dough or batter in an end product that everybody loves. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you'll come to homebaking.org and download Dough Sculpting 101 or some other piece of this wonderful program that we offer to you as a test kitchen source. Thank you again. This is Sharon Davis with the Home Baking Association, homebaking.org. See you in the kitchen. Bye-bye.